Hokie Hangover. Ricky, did you have a good Christmas?
I did. I had a fine Christmas. Spent it in Tennessee. Got to see my dad's side of the family there. Then got to come back and spend a couple days with my fiance's family up in Jersey. So it was very good. However, upon my return from the Dirty Jers, I threw my back out. So I have been crippled for the last 24 hours, pretty much. And quickly enjoying my 30s, Mike.
Yeah, I was gonna say once you hit 30, it's all downhill, which I'm sure you've
Yeah,
you found out. You found out quickly. I'm gonna adjust my camera.
yeah,
There we go.
yeah.
Beautiful. Since the last time we recorded, it's been
Well, no, what did you have a
basically.
good Christmas, Michael?
I
Hold
did.
on.
Yeah, I did. I did. It was nice. Nice.
Okay.
Busy. Busy. Seeing everybody's family.
Yeah.
Yeah, busy.
And we know
My
that
family, her
Andrew
family.
had a good like post Christmas because he spent yesterday in DC watching the the Commanders getting a big dub.
Yeah, huge dub. And then he saw them a week ago as well, right before
Mhm.
Christmas. So he's now seen them in back-to-back weeks, which it's hard work. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, and
It's
he gets to see Virginia Tech in a few days.
as do we. We will all be in Charlotte.
Yes.
Ricky, you will be in the press box. Andrew and I will be in the stands. Although Andrew, I've been texting him kind of semi incessantly because we're getting group tickets and we haven't purchased any yet. It's Monday night as we sit here recording. If you're not following us live, it's Monday night. We do not actually have tickets yet, but we do have. I have a hotel. I'm going with Scott, my brother-in-law, producer Scott. He's coming with me, so we're going together. We have a hotel locked down in the middle of Charlotte, and we are a mile from the stadium.
There you go.
All we need now is football tickets. Already RSVP'd. Andrew's having a little thing. I don't want to get that too. I don't want to put that out there too loud
If you
because
know, you
people just start
know.
showing up. But yeah, I'm going to be with Andrew before the game. Ideally, we'll be together during the game as well. We're waiting on the whole ticket purchase thing. So that's what's going on with that. But we will be in Charlotte. It's the second straight year that I've attended a Virginia Tech game only at the bowl game, not in Blacksburg, which is pretty funny because I'm traveling a lot further than Blacksburg for this
Yes.
one,
Yes, you
which
are.
makes it a lot funnier. But alas, here we are. Shout out Scott. Scott said he wanted a ticket to the bowl game for Christmas. So we're going, baby. We're
Yeah.
going. We'll be in Charlotte on Friday.
The nice thing about the bowl game at Charlotte is that you know tickets will be available. It's not like
Yeah.
a worry about it selling out. So
No.
you could literally buy tickets that morning and you're going to have a seat.
Yeah. It's not that I'm worried about the game selling out or that I won't get in the stadium. It's just making sure I'm able to sit with Andrew is mainly that's the goal. So
Someone's
we'll
got to
make that happen.
babysit him.
Well, we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. Since the last time we recorded, so it's been 2 full weeks, obviously with the holidays. 2 weeks ago we recorded and we had a podcast where we basically discussed all the departures. We discussed Chris Marv getting fired. We discussed Virginia Tech moving on with the offensive line coach as well. We're in a spot now where Virginia Tech has made at least one hire that we're aware of, which I think needed to happen, obviously, with Ron Crook leaving. Virginia Tech's hired Matt Moore. He was the offensive line coach at West Virginia. He was up for the Broyles Award a year ago. West Virginia has had some good offensive lines. If you watched West Virginia play, offensive line has not been their issue the last few years.
Mhm.
And with Neil
They've been
Brown's
like a top
departure,
10 rushing team the last 2 years.
and with Matt, and so that fits right into what Virginia Tech's been trying to do offensively under Brent Pry. They've been trying to run the football. And with Neil Brown being let go from West Virginia, Matt Moore was looking for work. And right place, right time. He comes to Blacksburg. It's an interesting hire. He obviously has a very good pedigree. He comes from the Mike Leach, Hal Mummy tree. Air Raid is kind of where his roots are as an offensive line coach. So he has the pass blocking chops that you want, which obviously has not been as strong as I think Virginia Tech fans would hope the last few seasons. but also West Virginia has run the ball pretty damn well, and Virginia Tech has been that's been their identity. Virginia Tech's offense, when it's been at its best under Tyler Bowen, has run the football really well, and this is a guy who checks off, in theory, both boxes. I like the hire a lot. Moving on from Ron Crook and getting more, I do think it's an upgrade. I think you're in a spot now where Pry was able to kind of pick his guy, right? Because the last time around, when with just the circumstances of how Joe Rudolph left and when it was a little bit harder for Brent Pry to go out and get the guy that he wanted. But this was a situation where end of year, little easier to go out and hire somebody. You're able to kind of handpick your guy, so to speak, and not just choose from like the best crop of whoever's available. It's almost like a picking over type situation. But yeah, Virginia Tech gets Matt Moore. I like the hire, Ricky. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna try and hype up Matt Moore as like some godsend who's one of the best assistants in football, because I wouldn't be able to make that case for almost anybody. That doesn't mean this isn't a great hire for Brent Pry. To be able to go get someone that normally would not be on the market. I mean, this is an offensive line coach that, by all intents and purposes, has done his job very well over the last few years and has serious chops at the Power Four level of coaching. It kind of reminds me of when Vance Weiss ended up at UNLV after Justin Fuente was canned here in Blacksburg. Vance Weiss was always a good offensive line coach. He just happened to be on the market because his boss didn't know what he was doing. And he was able to parlay that into a nice job at UNLV and is now back at the Power Four level at Purdue with Barry Odom. For Matt Moore, this is a pretty nice landing spot in the sense of you're probably getting paid pretty well. I don't know what his salary is, but I would assume that Pry had to fork out a decent number considering the kind of career that Matt Moore has had. And you've also got a bit of a fresh start on the offensive line for you to kind of play with as you will. And as we'll get into in a minute, he's already brought two of his guys over from West Virginia. So offensive line, defensive line, Mike, these are the two position groups that affect every single other position group on the field. These guys have to be playing well. And on the offensive line, under Brent Pry, this unit just has been too inconsistent, and we haven't seen the development from the younger guys that we've needed to. And you have to hope that getting a guy in like Matt Moore, who's been able to put many guys into the pros and have all sorts of guys getting all conference recognition, that you're going to have somebody that's going to be able to make a legitimate impact right away. And regardless if it's with the guys that are currently on the roster or guys that are going to be brought in, you have to believe that Matt Moore is at least going to make things a little better. I don't know that things are going to be great in his first year, but it looks like that this is a guy that can at least get this unit playing competent football, both in run and pass.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it checks off some boxes. It's going to look different. It's a total reset on the offensive line, and we'll get into two transfers he's bringing with him here in a second. But it's a total reset up front anyway. So with the guys who are leaving, I mean, you have the Moore brothers who are both out. You have Xavier Chaplin who's out. Those are three of your top linemen out the door, right?
Yep.
It's going to be a revolving door at guard. You have to figure out at least one tackle spot, maybe two. Is Clements out of eligibility finally?
That's a good question, Mike.
Yeah,
I would ask you to consult your basketball conference podcast host, Joey Weaver, regarding eligibility questions.
Yeah. Eligibility is all made up, as Joey likes to say. Even more so now since last time we recorded, where basically if you had any JUCO time before, you can basically just name when you want to stop playing college football. It's basically up to you at this point.
It's all fake, Mike. Let's see. Clements looks like he enrolled in 2020. So no, Parker Clements probably has more time should he choose. I don't know. I
Maybe
mean,
Matt Moore will
I
choose
could be
for him. Who
wrong. I
knows?
honestly don't know at this point. It's become quite difficult to realize who still has. I didn't think Sam Brumfield had eligibility, and all of a sudden he's
Only
in the portal. And
only because of the JUCO rule.
I'm like, all right, whatever, man. Like,
Only because of that new JUCO rule last week. Shout out
there's
Diego Pavia.
there's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot on podcasts. I feel like going pro in something other than football. Sam, that's you.
It is, but extend it as long as you can. And you may never make as good of money as you're making right now.
That's true. That's very
You know,
true. Someone
that's
at the group of 5 level Middle Tennessee can pay him quite a bit of money where he
yeah,
can make a decent living.
yeah, I agree. Let's talk about so last time we recorded also I don't think anybody was in the boat yet from a transfer portal standpoint. If so, the class did not look like it does right now.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech just got a lot of traction really quickly. Let's start with the 2 West Virginia offensive linemen that Virginia Tech brought in, Kyle Altuner and the headliner, Thomas Remack. And
Is it
Remack
Remack or Rimack? Do we know?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I'll try and find out.
All right. Sounds good. 2 West Virginia guys coming in that, I think, especially in Remack's case, Remack. I don't know. We'll find out his name.
Really quick, Hokie Law Dog SATX, like in the blue jerseys. 5 points to whoever can figure out what that date is. Mike, you're ineligible because you know exactly what that date is.
It's funny because I have something to my right that I think I'm going to leave right here and not flash on the screen for several reasons. You're welcome.
Thank
You're very welcome. At least I could do. I think Virginia Tech is in a spot with Remack where at 6'6", 318, I think he can play tackle.
Yes,
he was a bit of a swing guy at West Virginia. I think he can play tackle in Blacksburg. I think you can occupy one tackle spot with a guy who's been in the Matt Moore blocking scheme before. That I think Tyler Bowen would be more than happy to plug in, either at left tackle or right tackle. I think with the way things have gone with Parker Clements, if he's back in the fold and he's going to play significant snaps, I don't think you want Parker Clements playing left tackle next year. So perhaps that's where Remack plays. I'll just pronounce his name differently every time I bring it up. That way, if somebody complains about how I pronounce his name, I can just point to the time I pronounce it correctly.
I'm currently digging through the West Virginia media book looking for pronunciation guides.
Continue doing that.
Oh, I'm close. Hold on. I almost got there.
And Kyle Altuner into fold as well. And so you're getting 2 guys who have played. It's good podcasting.
Yeah. It is Remack. It is Remack.
Oh, okay. Nailed it.
You did. Good job, Michael.
How do you like me now, baby? How do you like me now? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how do we feel about this? I mean, Altuner's young, right? Like,
yeah, I think Altuner is
young.
Probably
this will be college ball for him.
He's the project guy. He missed all of this past year due to injury. He's going to be somebody that obviously Matt Moore believes in him if he was willing to bring him over from West Virginia. This is a guy that, I mean, you have to hope that he can project out and maybe be in the 2 deep for this coming year and then possibly work his way into a starting spot after next season.
Good high school prospect, Ricky, too.
Yeah.
Good high school prospect out of
You're
good
getting
counsel,
someone that
which,
was
by the way, has become.
Yeah. You're getting someone that certainly was well thought of before they got to West Virginia. But as you and I have discussed incessantly, you always have to check your stars at the door. And
right.
he hasn't panned out at the college level yet. That's not to say that he won't. Obviously, coming off of a season-ending injury is certainly going to impact things. So you have to hope that he's healthy. You have to hope that you can get him in a full spring set of practices and see what he can do and maybe crack the two deep. Um, Remac is obviously one of the biggest additions of this group. I actually did a little ranking of my own of like my top 5 portal additions, and I have Remac at number 2. Uh, this is the kind of guy that Virginia Tech really needed, and a player that normally would not be available on the market. I think for a program like Virginia Tech. I mean, if Matt Moore,
Yeah.
goes, so he was probably following Matt Moore regardless, and Matt Moore was already kind of a lucky hire for Brent Pry in the sense of he was available. So this is a guy that falls right into Virginia Tech's lap, and fortunately, Brent Pry was able to get the job done here. He's certainly going to be penciled in as a starter for next season, I think, without question. You have somebody that's an honorable mention at the Big 12 level last year, someone who's played in 24 games over the last 2 years. At worst, Mike, you're getting a competent offensive lineman, potentially getting something a little bit better. Virginia Tech really needs those right now. They're in short supply.
Yeah. In Altooner's case, the fact that he's basically 1 year into his college career, hasn't really played
Yeah.
because he was hurt. He would be one of the highest rated offensive linemen, maybe the highest rated offensive lineman. I was starting to dig before I had basically 2 minutes to scramble before we hit record to like get my ducks in a row. Had trouble getting my kid to bed tonight. I was doing some digging. I'm pretty sure Altooner would be the highest rated recruit that Brent Pry has ever gotten on the offensive line at Virginia Tech. Just if you take like the prospect, I basically count him as a prospect because he hasn't really played. I mean, this is a big time addition, and like you mentioned, hopefully he can be in the two deep. Hopefully he can develop in the way that Matt Moore saw, right? Bring him in at West Virginia and can be that guy coming off of an injury moving forward with all his eligibility. With Remac, it's plug and play. You're going to anchor the offensive line next season. You're an all-conference player at the P4 level. You got to continue to be that at Virginia Tech. So I have very little concerns about Remac. I think he'll be a good addition. I think everything will be fine there, as long as he stays healthy. The experience there is huge because Virginia Tech, looking at the offensive line heading into next year on paper, it's pretty green. So I think having an experienced offensive lineman who has played a lot of football, who is an all-conference player, I think is obviously a very good add, something that Virginia Tech needed on the offensive line.
For sure. And, this is really the first time in the Brent Pry era that it looks like he's been able to make an offensive line acquisition worth noting. I mean, we thought that Montavious Cunningham would be that guy last year, and he could never get on the field except in garbage time. And then
Right.
we obviously have the infamous Clayton Frady, Virginia Tech legend, that Virginia Tech really relied on in the transfer portal a couple of years ago and never played. So Brent Pry has tried to address the offensive line through the transfer portal through his tenure in Blacksburg, and up until now, it hasn't really panned out. But it looks like that at least with Remac, potentially with Altooner, we'll see. But especially with Remac, this is going to be the first time Virginia Tech was able to land someone on the offensive line that looks like they have the chops to play right away.
Right. Which is good because that's been an area where Pry and his staff have essentially swung and missed since he's gotten here. Offensive line, they just simply have not gotten right. And hopefully with bringing in more and then having some high caliber players coming into the fold, at least on paper, you can get some stability there. Let's talk about some of these other additions in the transfer portal, Ricky. Virginia Tech has now added 3 running backs.
2, Michael, 2.
Well,
As I was quickly corrected on X.
2.5. Virginia Tech added Marcellus Hopkins from Central Missouri, making a jump to the FBS level. They added Terrion Stewart from Bowling Green. Play the Falcon sound. Very good running back for the Bowling Green Falcons.
Wrong podcast, Mike.
Wrong podcast. I'll have that sound on my next podcast I record here in a bit.
Yes.
And then Cameron Seldon from Tennessee, who is a very intriguing ad. A guy that Virginia Tech was after coming out of high school. He's got 2 years of eligibility remaining. Coming over from the SEC, a big back, 6'2", 222. A little bit in the Trey Edmonds mold, Ricky,
That's an interesting comp.
right? A very interesting addition. So,
I don't
I
know
mean, what do you?
I don't know that Trey was ever considered to be a wideout potentially.
No,
I
just
mean, he
size,
had kind
just
of the
just on
same
size.
build. Yeah.
Yeah, but
But yeah,
Seldon, I think, is going to be an impact guy. I think. I mean, he feels
well,
like a guy who you can kind of move all over the offense.
he's someone that at least has experience returning kicks, it looks like, which I think Virginia Tech could use given Facial Toot and Jalen Lane both gone. Tucker Holloway's coming off essentially a lost season. So you really don't know what you have at the return spots. Like for me, this is all about Terrion Stewart. I'm a huge fan of this ad. I had this as my number one addition in the portal this year. Um, Guys had 1,600 yards the last 2 years, 14 touchdowns for. It looks like a bit of a timeshare potentially at running back this year. I think he only had like 160 carries. I'm not sure how that averages out, but it seems like he wasn't utilized a ton, and he still ran for almost 900 yards this past year. I'm not saying he's going to be Bashal Tuden because that's a high bar to clear, but I think Virginia Tech certainly elevated this room a little bit considering what it looked like just a couple weeks ago. Without Tuten, um, Malachi Thomas is gone, so you're left with Jeremiah Coney and a bunch of freshmen. So Terrion Stewart certainly looks like he's going to be RB1 heading into uh, spring practices. The Selden edition, I'm kind of on the fence about. Here's another guy, kind of like Altuner, who was really highly thought of out of high school, except Selden has had more time to pan out in Tennessee and just hasn't. So you've got a guy that, at least reportedly, is moving positions in Blacksburg and going to be playing at wide receiver. How does he play in that role? Are they going to be trying to get him involved in the run game? I'm not entirely sure. So that one's intriguing, but I'm still on the fence about that one.
A trend here. Virginia Tech is totally remaking like 3 different position groups on their
Yeah.
roster, right? Offensive line, running back, and then safety, which, going into the offseason, we weren't foreseeing safety is going to be like a total rebuild, but alas, here we are, right? Transfers out of the program, including Jalen Stroman and Mose Phillips. Jalen Jones obviously is graduating. So you're in a position where you're totally rebuilding that room now. And you add Sherrod Coville from Clemson, who, again, another guy Virginia Tech was interested in on the recruiting trail, was in his final 3 or final 5. I mean, Virginia Tech was in the mix there late in his recruitment. He goes to Clemson, plays a bit. Safe to say that Coville coming over is probably heading into spring as one of the starting safeties, given what Virginia Tech has in the room. A good player who I don't think, given his the pomp and circumstance around him coming out of high school, I don't think he panned out at Clemson the way the Clemson fans expected him to. But now he ends up in Blacksburg. You add Tyson Flowers from Rice. You add Isaiah Cash from Sam Houston State. Shout out Brad Cornelson. So you're adding some depth in the defensive back room, and we'll see how that all plays out. I'll throw the cornerbacks in here too, Ricky, because I think some of the safeties are going to be interchangeable, and I think we may as well discuss corner here because that's going to be a rebuild in that room as well. Joseph Reddish, yes, brother of Quentin Reddish, making the jump to the FBS level, coming to Blacksburg. And then the addition I really like is Isaiah Brown Murray from East Carolina, a very productive player at the Group of 5 level that I think can come in and make an impact at Virginia Tech right away. I really like that addition. I think he's flying under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, so my top 5 additions 3 through 5 are Isaiah Cash from Sam Houston, and then I have Tyson Flowers from Rice, and then Isaiah Brown Murray at 5 at corner. I'm of the opinion, Mike, that Sherrod Koval should not be one of the starting safeties in spring ball.
Ooh.
Um, I know he's coming from Clemson, but he was not overly productive there. Whereas you've got two guys who, at the G5 level, showed that they could produce at a pretty high level. Both of those guys graded out pretty well on Pro Football Focus and were able to put up some decent numbers in the secondary. It's also possible, Mike, that we see all three of those guys in packages anyway.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
shock me if all three of those guys are going to be seeing the field. But I am more excited about Flowers and Cash than I am Koval, honestly. I think that those are the two biggest ones. And I'm with you on Brown Murray. I think that that was a kind of an under the radar pickup for a position that Virginia Tech's already got one of their starting cornerback positions probably locked down with Dante Levitt. Thomas Williams is going to fight for that second spot, but Isaiah Brown Murray is certainly going to be stiff competition there. But again, this is another position group, like you said, Mike, that's being completely remade in the portal. 5 DBs being added in one cycle is quite a few. Um, and it's certainly going to be, I think, some growing pains throughout the spring and summer camp, probably, as all of these players try to figure out how to play next to one another. I think it's going to be really interesting. But considering, again, where this unit was just a couple weeks ago, after all of the folks were leaving this team in the secondary, I think Virginia Tech did a pretty good job of filling some of these holes.
I think so too. Everybody was screaming portal, portal, portal. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? And Virginia Tech had a really good offensive line coach, and they add in a bunch of guys who I think can be players who can make an impact on the roster next year, which is what you want to do in the portal. One guy we haven't talked about yet, it's literally the only guy we haven't touched on in this portal discussion that we need to just to round out the discussion. Jazari Priester from Hampton coming over to Virginia Tech. Interesting. He's 6'8", 250 pounds, right? So that's very tall, also very lanky. So
Yeah.
we'll see there, I think. It's
Very big.
I'm
We'll
of the
see.
opinion.
Quite honestly, I'm a little underwhelmed with Virginia Tech's work on the defensive line in this class. They've got some work to do in bringing some guys up to be able to play at the 2 deep. Priester certainly could be that guy, but again, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure where he fits in this scheme. I haven't done enough research into him to be able to figure out like where he realistically could line up in this defense. But you're certainly bringing an interesting physical specimen on the roster for sure. Before we finish, there's some comments here I want to get to. The Selden has explosive play potential here from James Gilmore. That certainly seems the case, James, that he's going to be a guy that could potentially take the top off of defenses. No idea if he's got any experience playing receiver at the college level, whether it be in practice or in a game. But that one's certainly interesting. And then another one from James. Terrion Stewart isn't a third down back, but great overall, just not going to give you much on passing downs. Not really sure who that guy is, Mike, for next year. I'm not sure who Virginia Tech's kind of receiving third down back is in this group. I think we're probably going to have to wait and see. This is another option from Andrew. Heard the Hampton DL, which is Jazari Priester, was potentially being looked at for offensive line. Mike at 6'8", 250 and a year in a Power 4 weight room with a Power 4 training table, it's certainly a possibility. I mean, if he's got the long arms, he might be able to fit at tackle.
I'm open to any and all possibilities at offensive tackle, even with the remap edition.
Pretty much.
I don't think I'm shy about that. Yeah.
But if that's the case, then Virginia Tech's defensive line is in dire need of some assistance. So I don't know.
Right.
How much longer is the portal window open, Mike?
A while, because these guys who are playing in the college football playoff, these guys are going to have the option to jump in. So, I mean, they already do, but a lot of them in most cases, especially those who are contributing actively to a roster currently who may want to look elsewhere next year, obviously for NIL purposes in a lot of cases. Yeah, they're going to wait until after their season's done. So
Trying to
portal's open a
find
while.
a date. So it looks like the window closed on the 28th, and then there's a 10-day window in April.
Yeah, just be on the lookout.
So
Be on the lookout.
we'll have to wait and see if there's more coming. I mean, it's certainly a possibility. Low Country Living put that guy at tight end.
Priester? Sure. Hands like plates. Hopefully not.
Based on the fact that he was playing defensive tackle at Hampton, I would probably assume that he's not going to be someone who's going to be able to make plays downfield.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not sure on that one. But if Virginia Tech is able to make any more additions in April, that would be certainly helpful on the defensive line, because I still think that that's a unit that Virginia Tech needed to address in this cycle and just doesn't look like they did a great job of it. Great additions elsewhere. Really happy with what they did at the offensive line thus far. Really happy what they did at running back with Terrion Stewart. Big fan of some of the guys in the secondary. Just feel like this team is really going to miss APR, and I'm not sure that they've got folks behind him that can be able to make a similar impact. JC Price has got his work cut out for him. That's for sure.
There's potential for this team to be really, really bad in the trenches next year, which
doesn't bode well.
let's level set here. December the 30th. That means the team is not going to be very good if you're not good in the trenches. That's how that works.
If I remember correctly from Andrew, APR and Peoples were spring portal guys. I know APR was. I don't remember about Peoples.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Peoples left right after Peoples was in the portal right when Elko dipped. So yeah, I don't.
That makes sense. But I am confident that APR was a spring guy. So
right,
kind of a late ad.
I think that's half right. Cool. People are wondering what Virginia Tech's doing at defensive coordinator. I can say this with certainty. Virginia Tech has talked to Anthony Poindexter at Penn State, co-defensive coordinator. He was in the mix to be Pry's defensive coordinator first time around. Pry ultimately went with Marv. Poindexter was a name I was certainly interested in when Pry was hired. Didn't work out. Poindexter ends up, of course, at Penn State, where he's the co-DC. I don't know if that's who they're going with, but if you're reading the tea leaves, Ricky, it's December the 30th. Virginia Tech has not made one of the most important hires on the coaching staff yet, and there are only a handful of teams left playing football, right? As we sit here recording tonight, there are several bowl games on New Year's Eve, and then it's basically playoff games from here on out, with the exception of the Mayo Bowl and like 2 other bowl games. It's bowl season outside of the college football playoff is basically done in the next 48 hours, outside of like 2 or 3 games. Yeah. So process of elimination would tell you that Virginia Tech's next defensive coordinator might be on the staff of a playoff team. Poindexter, I know Virginia Tech's talked to Poindexter. Would make sense for him to not leave Penn State in the middle of a college football playoff run if he's the guy. That's all I can say about that. I don't know if they've hired him. I don't know if he said he's coming. I don't know. I just know that they've talked. That's it. That's all I can say about that with certainty.
Yeah, Poindexter seemed. I mean, if we're just looking at this logically, right, and rationally, based on the guys that are out there, Poindexter makes the most sense. It's an interesting hire given that he's a UVA graduate, has a ton of experience coaching at that school, played there, obviously, has some P4 experience. Like you and I and Andrew and the guys were talking about this earlier today. It's interesting that Poindexter is a co-defensive coordinator, Mike. He is the only co-defensive coordinator on the staff, which is an odd set up there. Was it Tom Allen, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Tom
Tom
Allen's
Allen
the play caller.
is the defensive coordinator, and then Anthony Poindexter is the co-defensive coordinator. Interesting setup there over at Penn State, but it certainly seemed like this would be a promotion for him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an obvious connection there. It seems like that's probably where this is headed. I'm going to put this up there half for laughs and half because I really don't know. Andrew says Jeff Collins or Nick Sorensen. Andrew, I'll put it this way. If it's Jeff Collins, you can find me in a ditch in Virginia Beach. That's where I'll be. Yeah.
Go Jackets.
Uh,
And heels, of course.
As far as Nick Sorensen, I guess there's some questions about whether or not he's going to retain his job with the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know if he'd be willing to make that jump. Obviously, this is a tech grab we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Niners are not having a particularly great season. I don't know what their defensive statistics look like. I have no idea. So I'm not going to be able to speak intelligently on that one. Although there is a guy on that defensive staff that I think a lot of Tech fans would love to have as their defensive coordinator. James, a linebackers coach hire is almost as important as DC because of the lack of production there. For sure. Not as important, obviously, as your play caller at defensive coordinator, but Virginia Tech's linebackers have been bad for quite some time, Mike. It's been quite a while where you looked at the linebacker play and felt like they were playing at a high level. And Virginia Tech could really use somebody that could fix that.
And just from a coaching staff numbers standpoint, I mean, the only defections were Ron Crook and Chris Marv. So logic will tell you that whoever's taking over the linebacking core, whoever's coaching them, it's going to be internal, somebody already on the staff, or it's going to be whoever you bring in as the new defensive coordinator. Right? Yeah. That's who's going to coach the linebackers. It's not going to be an additional on-field coach just because Virginia Tech doesn't have any room. Like they can't hire another guy just to coach linebackers, right? It'd be, it's kind of the way we're trending. It's probably just going to be double duty for Sean Quinn, I think is what I'd expect.
That's certainly a possibility. The interesting thing here would be if Poindexter were to be the guy, where does that leave Pearson Prelo? I mean, Poindexter has been coaching safety essentially his entire career for the most part. Is this a situation where you're just going to have Poindexter as the defensive coordinator and he's not going to be coaching a position group?
Or, and I think this would have probably happened already, Rick. I think Prelo's probably going to be on the staff next year. But let's play out that theory, right? You bring in Poindexter, he coaches safeties. You push Prelo out, and now you have an opening if you want to hire a linebacker coach. So
yeah, I guess it's a possibility. I don't see them pushing out Pearson Prelo.
I do not either.
I don't think
that's
going to happen.
I don't either.
And another, I guess, thing could be where Sean Quinn would maybe move to your traditional linebackers coach, and then Poindexter is going to obviously be the defensive coordinator, and then maybe coach the outside linebackers, the stars, which is what Sean Quinn has been doing now. That certainly could be an option as well.
There are options there on staff, right?
If Poindexter is the defensive coordinator, linebackers will likely be Quinn and a DB, unless they keep Bud on as an advisor. I swear to God. So that's another bit of news that we will probably get into more on the preview for this bowl game coming up. Bud Foster is going to be in the booth, Mike. How do you feel?
Why not? Well, I mean, why not? Whatever.
Shout out to Bud, man. Bud's leaving the lake house. He's over there at the lake house, right? He's staring at his boat. and he's like, God damn it, I want to coach football. He can't get away from it.
Does he really want? I mean, he doesn't really want to do this beyond the bowl game, though, right? This is like because
I
they've
don't
had
think
staff
so.
turnover. Like they've had staff turnover. They need somebody to like. They need an extra set of hands, like to prep for the bowl game. Get some of the young guys like up to speed, and it's fundamentals. A lot of bowl prep anyway is fundamentals stuff because you're bringing, especially nowadays with like all the opt outs, you're playing a lot of young guys who you wouldn't ordinarily play. It's extra. We talked about the value of extra bowl practices from that standpoint. So who better to teach you the fundamentals of playing defense than Bud Foster, right?
I
So
mean, not every school gets to have one of the greatest assistant coaches in the history of the sport just chilling in their hometown, essentially.
right, right. I mean, he's
And
never really
someone
left.
who's sitting like 10 rows up every game. I mean,
Right, right,
he's in the stands for every game.
right.
At least every home game. He's got seats. So Bud is as clued in with this roster as anyone that's not technically on the staff could be, probably.
Agree. So I mean, I
But
hope for
for the love
Bud's
of
sake.
God, I hope that Bud is not considering making a comeback. Enjoy it, Bud. You have done more than we could ever ask for. God bless.
Yeah. Stay at the lake for your sanity. Stay at the
Yeah,
freaking
really
lake
for your sanity.
for your sanity. Do we want to do a 10-minute bowl preview?
I mean, I'll be honest. I need to read up on Minnesota to kind of get an idea as to what they have, and what they don't have. And considering, I don't know who's left in the portal. I know that last time I checked, they're 7.5-point favorites, Mike. So
They are.
one would presume that they have not lost as much to the portal as Virginia Tech has.
They have not. I mean, they have a key opt out on the offensive line in Ariante Ursary, who's an All-American type lineman. He's certainly All Big Ten selection at offensive tackle. He's opted out. You do have Darius Taylor, a really, really good running back, sophomore, who is playing in this game. He's your best offensive player, and he is playing the football game. So, thoughts and prayers to whoever
Go ahead.
Virginia Tech suits up.
Oh, I was going to say, is he going to play a half or is he going to play the full game?
Yeah, there it is. And there it is. He doesn't have any records to set, so he'll probably play the whole game.
I had to stick that knife in there.
Yeah.
I think we can do maybe a quick bowl preview later this week, Mike, if that works
That's
for
fine.
you. I would like to look into the Gophers a little bit.
That's good.
I will say that this is a cool matchup for me, just in the sense of I liked watching PJ Fleck at, was it Western Michigan, right? And I've kind of like cheered for him from afar at Minnesota. I think I have like a special place in my heart for like all these Big Ten West teams, essentially. Like anyone who's not Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State in the Big Ten, I've historically wanted to see do okay. So I've always kind of wanted Fleck to figure it out over there. So the fact that he really hasn't is sad. But it doesn't seem like he's by any means on the hot seat. I don't know if you know anything different that's going on over there. Yeah,
nah, he's good. He would have been cut already. He's fine.
So
he's good.
We'll come back either well, not tomorrow night, because I'm sure Mike will be asleep at 9:30.
I will not be doing what I used to do, drinking until 3 a.m.
Those days are those New Year's Eves are long gone, my friend.
long in the rear view. Maybe they make an appearance once the kids are older.
Yeah. Regardless,
I only have one kid.
We'll have a quick preview for the bowl game. Can't imagine it'll be much. Maybe just a little primer. And maybe we can set up a spot outside the stadium where we maybe meet up with some folks or something like that. If folks want to come say hi to the Hokie Hangover.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, something we might be able to do. We'll also have Izzy Rulin on the sidelines doing photos for this game. So Hokie Hangover is going to have Bank of America packed out. We are in full force this Friday.
Representation in the Queen
Yes.
City.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. All right.
Rate,
We'll
review,
regroup later this
subscribe.
week.
Yeah, make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on X. We go live on both of those platforms. Last comment
Clear
here
that up. Yep. Yep.
from James Gilmore. Well, James, winning teams find ways to win, and even though Minnesota was 3-4 in one-score games, they only went 7-5. Is that right? So,
Yep. With the chance at win number 8 this week, unfortunately. All right. Well,
I'm a believer. I know it's not as true at the college level, Mike, but I'm a believer in you are what your record says you are. So I know there's a ton of opt-outs, but Minnesota's 7.5-point favorites. If I
Yep.
were a betting man,
I mean, I think you and I are in the 2 deep this week. Like, name the position group. So I don't know.
Mike,
Be careful what you wish for there.
right now, the only position in the 2 deep I could be at would be like Waterboy or
Back's banged up.
yeah. Like I'm not even sure I could carry out the even when I'm healthy though, Mike. Like I'm not sure I'm I'm not sure I'm helping out much. You want to put me at guard, Mike? Is that what you want? You put me at guard?
We could put you anywhere, How's your defensive chops? Line you up on the nose?
I mean,
A little one technique?
Yeah. We'll start. Just make sure I get a club, right? I'll just tape up. Just tape up the hands.
There you go. Got to break your hand before to get that club. Pretty sure that's how that works. Yeah. There's like a prerequisite. Kind of snap your hand into.
But why? Why does there have to be a prereq?
Just because. I mean.
Well, in that case, I'm willing to do what it takes, Mike.
There we go. Yep. See, unselfish, lunch pail mentality, hard, smart, tough.
Showing a lot of grit here.
Grit, yeah, grit and hard, smart, tough. Hard, smart, tough our way through the tailgate at Charlotte. That's what I'll be doing.
Oh man, there will not be a lot of hard and smart decisions going on over there.
No. Hopefully the weather is better than what we endured at the Military Bowl last year because that was horrendous.
Yeah, I based on what I saw, it's supposed to be dry. However, it is going to be cold. So
I'm okay with that.
The low is like in the mid-20s. So I will be perfectly fine up in the press box with some heat. Whereas y'all will be needing your alcohol blankets more than you've ever needed them.
Look, that's a challenge. That's one I'm certainly up for.
There it is.
There it is.
All right. We'll be back later. If you're staying up late, go watch the Basketball Conference podcast on YouTube. Mike will be there in a few minutes.
Yep. Cool. Goodbye.
Later.
Go Hokies.